that will definitely assure us the next stage if we do all this. So again, good evening everyone. Welcome to the second week of this program. And if you're new, if today is your first time joining the classes, my name is John Adibe and I'm your instructor. And on the last class we talked about we have been talking about the basics of HTML, and also last class we brought up CSS, right? And as we progress, we are still going to be moving between HTML and CSS, like introducing more elements, also introducing more properties, and how to use CSS generally. Okay, so I believe before I start the class, I believe that we have all submitted the assignments if you are on the call, because I'm checking the dashboard, the classroom dashboard. I'm seeing that only 6 turned in for the assignments, which is 4. But then there's a grace for today because this is the first time that we are using this medium. But after today's class, every activity on this Google Classroom will be taken into consideration. Thank you. Okay, let me share my screen. Give me a minute. All right, please identify if you can see my screen. All right, thanks. Okay, so in our last class, we talked about some basics, right? About how to, go about adding CSS to our HTML, right? And we did the inline, we did the internal, and we also did the external. I believe we all remember this. If we don't, I will retreat on those methods. Sorry, Emmanuel, you raised your hand.
Yeah, please, I can't get the link to the attendance. Is it here or I can't find it?
Yeah, on this link, the meeting chat box,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, you can raise down your hand so that I can know when there's a new indication. All right. So in our last class, we talked about ways we can add CSS to our HTML. We talked about inline. If you remember inline is just adding the class to that particular element. Let's take, for example, this H1 element, right? So to apply inline style here, we are going to just say on the first opening tag, just make a space. We remember that, just put your style attributes, then equals to. Then here you can now put your declarations or your style declarations. You can say color set to red and all that. So let me launch this. I'm not sure I've done that yet. I believe we still remember how to do this. Open with live server. Yeah, so I set the front end class to red, which is what I did here. So this is inline, writing your style inside the line of that element. Then we remember internal. Internal is still writing your style in the HTML file, but then declaring it on the head tag. Remember why we have the head and why we have the body, right? So the head is mostly where we have the title of the page, other meta tags, and also where we declare other accessories or assets, right? One of them is your styles. So you can just come here. That this for internal. Write the style element, then put your element there. Okay. Now have body, and you say body background color to orange. and all that. So this is for internal. And then yeah, if I go back, you're going to see the background color is orange. And then this for internal, and this is external. External is just writing outside. So I'm just trying to retrace what we talked about in the last class. Right? So I won't go into details. If you want to understand more about it, if you weren't in the last class, I recommend you watch the videos. Okay, so now this is our external CSS, and this is the best approach. I mean, all the approach are still okay, they work fine, right? You can choose whether to stick with internal CSS or inline CSS or external CSS. Either way, still works fine, right? But why this is recommended, why creating external CSS file is recommended is so that your HTML file is going to look a little bit neat, right? So when we have all the styles here, it's just going to make everything look bulky, right? And all that. So we need to know where this is HTML and that is CSS. So, and with this particular line, this is line 5, we'll be able to connect our CSS file to our HTML just by calling the link element, then pass rel, style sheet, then href, which is the hyperreference. Href is the file, the CSS file, the name you gave it. And the name I gave my CSS file is styles.css. So that's why we have styles.css here. If I say another thing, let's say if I say globals.css, what I'm going to call it is globals. Okay. So now there's another way to write your HTML elements. You remember the time I did this in our previous class? I was typing it out one by one. But then there's another way to just write this whole thing without having to type it one by one. So there is this shortcut provided by VS Code, right? So you just first of all type exclamation mark. Okay. Then once you type exclamation mark, make sure that you have an option that says Emmet abbreviation. So once you click on this Emmet abbreviation, it's going to automatically populate the basic HTML file structure, the default one. So this is another way to go about it. I'll come again, exclamation mark, and then it's either you hit enter or you click on the Emmet abbreviation. So this will automatically populate the HTML element structure. All right, so we won't be needing this for now. We'll still come back to what it does, right? But let's just take it out. Now, remember our previous assignment, I said we should do a portfolio. So, and like I said in this class, we are also going to talk about building portfolio along, right? I'll be doing along while explaining other elements and other CSS properties and declaration. I think we have someone raising up his hand. Anointing.
Yeah, good evening, sir. I've been trying. I can't see your screen. That's my challenges now. Okay, I can see it now. Yeah, I can see it now.
All right, that's great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, sir. I think you're muted. Check your mic, please.
Wow, I was really muted. Sorry, for how long?
I think for like 2 minutes now.
Wow, sorry about that. So I was talking about indentation. Right? So making your code base look neater. So instead of having it like this is the parent here, this is the parent. Body started here, body ended here. So instead of having this p tag is obviously inside the body, right? Instead of having it in the same how will I put this, in the same space or column with the parents, just make it, put your tab just, and the tab is by the left, the tab key is by the left, I think in the second row of your keyboard. Put tab and it's going to give a space. So now even if you have, let's say, come to this div here, and then you have another div, or probably you have a p tag inside this div. Let's say we have a p, open p, and then close it. Say hello here. So this, you know what this is here, but then for some reason it's not looking really structured. So the best thing to do is just to use the indentation to make it look more descriptive to whoever that is visiting this particular code base. So this will help your code base look more neat, even on your CSS too. Yeah, I can have this thing like this instead of everything being on this online. I can have everything like this, like everything like all in one line, which is not descriptive at all. You'll not be able to understand what is happening. So I'm just bringing this up.
Yes,
I'm just bringing this up so we'll be able to, know how to do this as early as possible, because people make this mistake when they have gotten far in front end or using HTML.
Yeah, let's go.
So yeah. Say,
Joanne, I can take the
Face.
drink and water. I'll take it again. I'll take water again. Yeah, come. Yeah, I'll come and take it again later.
Alright. How can I miss it? Okay, she's muted. All right, sorry for that. Sorry about that. Okay, now let's go back. Let's build our portfolio. Remove every other thing inside our body. Okay, inside my body, I want to have H1. And H1 is going to say probably my name, John Adibe. So when you are doing this, you can also put your own name, right? So H1 is John Adibe, okay? And yeah, this is John Adibe. Refresh. Yeah. I can have my skill in a p tag. I'm a front-end developer. And then my email, or probably Slack channel, can have P. Yeah, email. Email can say john.xyz at example.com. Okay. So now this is just the first step. We are still going to go further and apply more styles to this to make it look more user friendly. But then before I do that, there is I talked about the class attribute. If we can remember, I talked about the class attributes when I introduced attribute. And if you remember when I was talking about attributes helps modify the behavior of a particular element, right? And there is attribute that is always common among elements. One of them is class, okay? And the other one is ID. There's also an attribute we call ID. Okay, so I can come here and have a div, and this div is going to be about me. I am a front-end developer, yeah, with a particular interest in making things simple. No problem. So this can be about me, right? Now, the ID attributes. No, see, one thing about class is let's say, for example, we have a class, let's say in JS1, yeah, you can have different classes in JS1. You can have JS1A, JS1B, JS1C, yeah. All these are subclasses under just JS1, right? So in a particular element, you can have multiple classes. Let's say we have let me make something clear. We have a p tag, and this p tag says will, right? We all know will. And this will can fall in the class of both aquatic animal and mammal. We all know it is mammal, right? I think. So aquatic animal and then mammal. Okay. So whale can also fall in the class of big fish, right? But then ID can only be one. ID means the identification of that particular element. So you cannot have multiple IDs, just like we have different members in this corp currently, and each of us, or each of the members both have their own unique IDs. There is no person that is sharing the same ID with the other person, right? That's what ID means when or how to present it when it comes to HTML. ID is unique to a particular element. So if I want to say give this particular about me now ID, I can say ID. Remember property and then value. That's equals to, I'll say about me. Now, since I have ID about me, I cannot have any other ID here that says about me. It will complicate the structure, but probably not the structure, but the way HTML reads your code base or what you implemented. So we cannot have double IDs. This ID is unique to this particular place. Okay. So, but I can have multiple classes. Remember, even inside this ID, I cannot say ID space John or that or any other thing. No, it's just only one item that I can have in ID. This hyphen I put there just to combine these two things. I can just say about. Okay. Now I'm still going to tell us how to, style IDs or select IDs using CSS. So this is a new attribute ID. We have talked about class. Then we talked about the href for A tags and also src for image, if you remember that. So we don't need this. So just an example. So now I have a div that contains about me. We can still expand this more. Okay. Now, when I was introducing HTML on the first class, there are some tags that I talked about that made mention that kind of explain themselves, right? We have the header tag. We have the footer, remember this. We have the section. We also have nav. I'm not sure I've talked about nav. Nav is just navigation in short, like short form for navigation. So semantic, why we call them semantic elements is because they clearly describe the meaning of what they do. Okay, just by the name of the tag, it tells you already, the developer, that okay, this is what this particular tag is doing in this particular section or in this particular place on my code base, right? In header, your header can be wrapping your navigations at the top, or your logos, or sign up and sign in. Those information you see at the top, right? Then your footer, obviously, at the very bottom of your page. Then sections. So you can use sections to just give what's it called? You can have multiple sections in a website. You can have section for about me, you can have sections for my skills, you can have section for projects, you can have sections for testimonials and everything, right? So you can use section. I mean, they both do the same thing as div. Div is not a semantic tag. It doesn't really give meaning to it, right? So I just use division so that the div can make a little bit more sense, right? So all these particular tag we have here, they are all container tags. Even div is also a container tag. But what differentiate these ones and this div is just the meaning or the name of the tags. We call them semantic elements. then give meaning to the elements so that both the browser can understand what you are trying to implement, and also you, the developer, can understand what you're trying to implement, or understand what you did when you did taken. So there are a lot of them. There's a lot of semantic elements, yeah. But then these few will come in handy frequently. So we also have another tag. I'm not sure I mentioned this earlier. We have another tag called UL. We have another tag called UL. Let me open and close it here. UL. UL means unordered list. UL means what? Unordered list. The U is for unordered, then L is list. So inside unordered list, we have another tag. This is just the way you must write ULs, right? We have another tag that is called LI. I can open LI and then close it. Sorry. Why is this thing? Sorry. Yeah. So UL means unordered list, then LI means list item. So we use this tag whenever we are trying to represent lists. Then LI means list item. Okay. So let me say UL. UL means unordered list, then LI means list system. So you must have LI inside the UL. Now let's say I want to represent a list of my skills or my text, yeah, probably the stacks or language that I know how to write. I can say HTML as the first item. I can come under, put another LI, then say CSS here, sorry. Then another LI, then I can say JavaScript. Now when I go back, you can see how it was represented on your code base. Unordered means you're just going to represent it with a bullet. This is what we call bullets, right? So the first item is HTML. What did I just write? HTML. Sorry about that. First item is HTML. Second item CSS. Then JavaScript. Okay. So this is for unordered list. We also have ordered list. Ordered list, instead of using bullets, is going to use 1, 2, 3. An ordered list is OL. Okay. OL, open and close it. Then inside of OL, you have your list item. In both tags, they both share similar content tags. That is the LI. They both share similar children. So this one I can say, let me know your skills. I can say something like probably my tools, mouse, keyboard. Sorry. LI, keyboard. Let me put space here, yeah, so we can know. Keyboard and another LI. Let's say laptop. Okay. So now let's see how it was presented. You can see ordered list. It was ordered. So we are going to use it's automatically use 1, 2, 3 to label its list items. But on ordered list, use what? Use bullets. Okay. Normally use bullet forms, but ordered use numeric format to label. Let me just put this comment here. So OL means ordered list. Yeah, the same thing with LI. LI means list item. All right, so now we know how to represent lists in HTML. There's another tag I would like to introduce. If you remember, we talked about the input tag. Okay, then close. And there's something that you need to provide in an input tag. Just have an input tag. You can type anything in it. We have this input tag. we can say the type of this input tag is text. Just want to accept text for now. And then remember, we talked about placeholder, right? Placeholder is what's standing while there is no value in that input. You say enter your full name. Now I'm still going to structure all these things to look like more user-friendly portfolio. So we have this, we can have another input. And the placeholder is going to be enter. This one is not going to be your password. This one can be your email. Enter your email. If you visit some portfolios, you will see a section where they have contact me, right? The user will put like up to 4 inputs. First one might be the full name, the email, and then probably the subject of why they're trying to contact the person or you in this scenario. And then a text area or another input that is very, very big where the user can put, or whoever is visiting your website can put in more information why he or she is trying to contact you. So that's what we're trying to do. So we have done for full name. This one accepts full name. Now let's do for email. What differentiates email inputs is the type. So for email, we are going to introduce still the same type attributes, but different value. So we have email. Now, since we are here, there are a lot of types for inputs. If I click control space, for you to see other types here, just enter inside the value. Then on your keyboard, control space bar. It's going to show you all the types of input that we have. We have button, we have checkbox, we have color, we have dates, date time, we have email, we have file. This file is used for, in fact, I'm going to add this file later after email. We have file, we have hidden, we have image. There are just a lot of them, right? So at your leisure times, you can still play around all these input elements. But for this class, we're just going to be talking about a selected few. So for this one, instead of text, we put email. So I'm now telling my browser that I want this particular input to accept email. Now, when I come here, so that everything is in the same line. Remember, I talked about inline elements and block elements. So this is how inline elements behave. They just come and stack behind each other in the same line. So for us to make this, because I want each element or each input to be on its own line, right? For me to like make this thing come under or in the next line, I'm going to bring a new tag. I'm sure I've talked about this tag before. There's a tag we call BR. This is mostly to break or to put a break between two inline elements or any elements at all. So whenever you have the BR tag in between two elements, you're telling the browser, okay, I want after these elements, the next element should be in the next line. That's what this BR means. I think it's break, like just break the line, BR. Now, when I come back, you see that the email is now in the next line. Okay. Now, for this thing to look, I want to introduce another element we call label. Sorry, I'm taking us back, but we need it. There's an element we call label. This label, I can say full name. Okay. When I come back, I'm going to see full name beside this particular element. I mean, if you visit some websites, you see the label and then the input. The label is just to give more context to what the input accepts. So my input accepts full name. I just put full name by the side. And there's one more thing we need to do, because sometimes when you go to some websites, when you click on the label, the input becomes active. Currently, the input is active now, right? But if I click outside, it's no more active. But I want in a scenario where even if I click on the label, this is the label, full name, even when I click on the label, the input should become active. Okay? And there is a way to achieve that in HTML. What we're going to do is introduce an attribute called for. Right? I can say for full name. Just enter anything. It's your choice. You can control how you name your values. say for full name, and then when you come to the input elements, you need to introduce an attribute, a new attribute called ID, and set the ID to full name. Make sure that the value of the ID of that input is the same with the 4 attributes on your label. So with this, you're telling the your system or the browser that this label is for this input, right? Because the label and the input share the same value. The label, the ID is full name. Then you're telling it the HTML, go to look through my HTML code, look for an input that has full name. So it's going to blend these two together. Now, when I say go back, if I now click on full name, you see the input becomes active. If I click outside again, once I click on full name, the input becomes active. If I start typing, it will affect immediately. So let's do the same thing for email. Let's do the same thing for email. So for email, we need to have another label. So we're going to say this label is for email. And then inside the label, we're going to type the content to the email address. Let me put colon here. I think that will make it look more. So remember, there's one more thing I need to do before they blend or they bind to each other. I need to bring ID and set the ID to the same value that I gave the 4 elements. That is email. So I'm saying this is for this. Now, when I go back, I'll see that we have email address. Now, when I click on this email address, you see this becomes active. I can start typing immediately. I click outside, come and click on here. This becomes active. So this is how to connect labels and inputs. We'll definitely be needing on the long run. So there is one more. Yeah, there's other form tag that I want to present. Yeah, remember your BR so that the next one will come under BR. So we have label. Oh, we don't need password. You can say probably want to know the gender of the person that is filling that form, right? So we can have a gender. Of course, let's call this one gender. Then the 4, it's just small letter gender. Okay. Now here, I'm going to introduce another input elements with different type. Inputs. Say type. Let me close this first. Type. There is this thing that will, there is this what is it called? There is this another type that is radio. Now there's a type here. You can see radio. If I select radio, then come back to your browser, scroll down. You see this is a radio tag. Okay. So now this is how radio is. Those circles that you have to check between each other. I'll still put one more tag with radio so that it's going to look more descriptive. Then okay, yeah, let's bring the coming minute label. Okay, yeah, no. Sorry, I'm coming. Instead of having gender here, we are going to have male. Sorry. Then set this for to male. Then this one is going to have ID of male. And then we're going to have another one. This one is going to be female. The 4 attributes is also going to be female in small letter case. Sorry. Then we'll now have an input. Yep. So the input has the ID of female, binding this label and input, then the type of radio. So when I come back, I will now see we have sorry, hide this. We have male and we have female. So if I click on this, now one of them is supposed to check each other, right? So I cannot have two genders, right? I cannot be a male and be a female at the same time. So I need to tell the system that they must select only one. But currently, so I think I see a question. Is it compulsory that we have a label and placeholder together? I mean, it is best that you have them together, right? But you can still create it at your own or however you want it to look like. But for starters, it is best to have label and inputs together. I mean, I still use both of them till now, right? So now what I'm going to do to tell my system that these two inputs are related to each other and I want only one value between them. I don't want to be able to check male and also check female, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring another attribute called name. The name attribute, I will say it is gender. I mean, you can give the name attribute anything, but make sure that whichever name you give the male input, you're going to give the same value to the female input. I'm just going to copy this same thing, then come to the female radio input, put the same thing. So I'm telling the system that this input and this input, they are both same, right? So it is now going to pick only one value between the two of them. Now, when I come back, if I select female, now if I click on male, you see it unchecks or unselects the female one. So I cannot select two. I can't select two. So it's either you're a male or you're a female. So with this name attributes, I was able to tell the system that both inputs are under the same value. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is good like this, right? So there's one more BR. Let's bring another input called file. Now I'm going to set the type. Set the type to file. Then let me set a label for it.
Sir, please, your screen, ma'am.
Say sorry, what did you say? I didn't get that. Upload your statement. Insert statement. Sorry, can you guys see my screen? I think someone is saying something. Okay, should that be Debbie? Please identify if you can see my screen though. All right. Okay.
Yes, you can see your screen.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so probably we need whoever is sending this information to also give me a statement, probably some official statement or something. Yeah, I can just create my input and set the type to file. Okay, let's say the for attribute, we can call it document, and then the ID, same value, set to documents. Now see what the file attribute does. You can see it says choose file. I'm going to remove it actually. It says choose file. So when I click on it now, it opens up this model, just some embedded HTML and your browser communication. This is the way you can communicate to your own folders and files on your PC. So we can just come here and select anything we want and click open. Then it loads it for us. Okay. So that's for file, but for the purpose of this course, I'll comment it out. So there's another tag we call text area. There's a tag we call text area. Sorry. Text area, right? Open and close. No, text area is not, is a void element. Sorry. Just like the inputs and other. Text area is a void element, isn't it? Then we can have we might not be able to, we might not need all these things. So when I go back, well, I need the label first. Let me bring the label. The label can say message. The content can be message actually. Then here I can have an ID set to message. So when I go back, wait, what? Sorry, refresh. What happened? Wait, text area is, oh, sorry, I think this, okay. I mean, in some cases, text area is a void element, but then, I mean, let's close it out for now, since our system is crying. All right, so to create this kind of input, there are this input that the user can actually expand. You can see I'm able to expand this input, mostly for taking in messages or every other thing, yeah? I mean, we do see this thing sometimes, right? We just hold the bottom right, and then drag around. So I can just come here and type the message I want to give to whoever I'm sending this to. Say message, no? I'm interested in your work. Sorry. Okay, so something like this, yeah? This is the text area element. So now to wrap this all up, this all the form elements, yeah, we have a lot of them actually, but this is the ones we'll mostly be using most of the time. So we have another tag called button. Yeah, let's our button say submit. Now when I come back, if I scroll down, I'm going to say submit. Now I want this thing to be on the next line. I'll put my BR. Yep, we have submit. So buttons are mostly I mean, we do have action buttons. Yeah, all those let me just open something up. So any of the faraway website that you visit, those rectangular looking action figures, they are all buttons or action layouts. They are all called buttons. So you have to click on them to probably open up another modal or another screen or another layout. So to have something like this, we use the button element. Yeah, something like this. Get started free, talk to sales, and other. So we use button element to create something like this. Okay. So yeah, I think someone raised his hand. Oh, sorry, Judith, you have your hand raised. All right. So well, okay, yeah, that's that for the form elements. Now, what we call this thing a form element? I mean, you know what form is here. Form is just it's more like those elements that you have to interact with. Either you are putting information inside of them, just like this input. You have to type in your phone name, email address, and every other thing. You have to interact with them, right? And also button. Button is also part of the form element. But then we also have an element called form. You have an element called form. So when we now dive into JavaScript, when we start doing form validation and everything, we'll definitely be using this element. So what this element does is mostly just to wrap all your elements, all your form elements, all the elements you implemented out for getting user information and then submitting. You wrap all of them inside a form element. So I can do that now. I've created a form element. Enter. I can just copy everything here. I'll just cut it out. Then inside my form element, paste, save. Nothing will change here, but then it is will come in handy when you start, handling the values that the user entered. Now, doing what you want to do with the values, probably send it to the backend or sending a mail and all that. So, yeah, that's that. So also the button, sorry about that. Sorry, the button also have other attributes, right? It has ID attributes, it have class attributes, but then it also has a type attribute. Most of the time, if you have a button inside a form, you have to be setting it to submit. You're just telling the system that, okay, this is the button that will carry all this information here and then send it to whoever I want the information to be sent. Okay, so that is it for the form elements. Any question though? No question? All right, so, okay. Chibike David. Yeah, Chibike David.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself.
Alright.
You said something about the form and the submit. In the case that if you use the submit button, it sends a feedback and everything. So my question there, yeah, is that can we have like two submit button in one form? And if there is like, is there any issue or anything? Can both of them do the same work? Like, so that's what I'm trying to ask. Like the button down there, yeah.
Yeah, like having two of it, right?
Yes.
Probably another button that doesn't say submit but says something else, right?
No, like let's say both of them say submit. Like just for example, I want to know like.
Yes. I mean they will do same thing, but I will not want to have two submit buttons.
Submit
It will
buttons.
look,
Okay.
yeah, it might look a little bit distorted for your users. But there are scenarios. I like the example. I like the example you brought up here. There are scenarios where you can have other buttons on your form. Let's say, for example, we have another button. Let's say we have a button that says, a button that says cancel. All right.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do to tell the system that these buttons do different things is with the type I'm providing. So I'm telling the system that this particular one we submit, I set the type to submit. I'm telling the system that this is the button that is going to carry all these values. So if I come here again, if I don't want cancel to use the values for anything, I'll just say type. I just set the type to button. There are other types here. We have button, we have menu, we have reset, we have submit.
Okay.
But by default, the type is button. I'll just set the type to button. Now I have two buttons on my form. One is submitting, one is doing something else. Okay. So this one cannot submit or have access to your all the information inputted, but this one can, because you told the system that this is the one that is going to submit and carry the information. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, now we have cancel, we have submit. Probably you don't want the user to, you can say reset. Let's say reset actually. Probably the user have entered some information and you still want them to be able to reset everything. You can say reset, then now put some actions where reset to clear the values. Well, there's also a reset here. Let's see what happens. Oh yeah, it actually does reset. Funny enough, I have not really used this reset that often, right? But then, yeah, the reset actually reset everything. And why it's doing it is because everything is wrapped in a form. It's wrapped in this form. So this reset, if the user enters all the information, I just click on reset, it clears all the information. And why it's doing that is because we set the type to reset. So now these two buttons are doing different things because of the type declaration or the attribute. I guess that answered your question, Chibike David. I didn't get what you said, but I believe you are
No,
coming
I
to that.
said it did. I said it did. Thank
All
you
right.
very much. I did.
Okay, great. So, Wordman, you said I'm lost, honestly. And also, are we getting a recording to this class? Yes, Wordman, we are getting a recording to the class. So by tomorrow, when the class is done premiering on YouTube, you'll be shared the link to revisit. And also the previous classes we had, this is the third class actually. Previous classes we had are currently on YouTube, so you can make reference to it. Ask your questions on the Slack channel if you're not getting anything. I'll be ready available to attend to them. So I didn't quite get well with the div and span. Gyrus. The div, like I said on the previous class, is mostly used for container, just if you want to wrap a group of contents or children. We can call these elements inside another element, we can call them children, right? It's the children of a particular element. It's mostly used for containers. Yeah, you can use it to wrap elements, elements, sorry. Inside this div that we have here, we can also have a p tag. We can also have a h1. We can have anything inside a div tag. You can use it for anything. You can use it for representing a text. You can use it for representing or wrapping other elements. You can have h1 here that says about. Probably not h1 because I already have h1. I might say this is h2. I can create other elements here. Even all these things I have here, all my expertise and tools, I can carry everything, cut it out, put it under the div that is wrapping my about, because skills and my tool is still about me, right? So div is mostly used for wrapping or used for a container. Yeah, it's the one containing all these elements. So gyros, and for span, you can, let's say I am a front-end developer with a particular interest in making things simple, and I want to give a special effect to this simple, right? I can use a span, but let me put this in a p tag. Cut it out. It's inside my p tag. Remember what p is? P is just for paragraph. And I want to put special effect to this simple. I can come and say, before here, I can say span, open and close. Then cut this simple, put it inside span. Nothing will change actually. When I scroll up, I'm still going to see everything, yeah? About me, I'm a front-end developer. Still the simple still looks the same, yeah? But then with this span, I can apply special effects to this particular text here. Probably I want to make it bold. With my style, I can say, there's actually elements for bold, but let me do this first. With my style, I can say there is a CSS. I don't want to go into CSS now, but because of this example, let me just brush it up. There is a CSS property called font weight. With this, you can apply weight to your text. Let's say bold. I say font weight to bold. Now, every other thing is still normal, but then when it comes to simple will take a bold, to be bolder. Now you can see I'm a front-end developer with a particular interest in making things simple, bold. Now it looks different from every other thing. Probably just to highlight, or just do some special. I mean, you can play with it around, right? Span is a text element. You cannot use span to wrap a div or wrap anything. It's not advised. I mean, it can. It's not complaint. But then there is a semantic structure and everything about HTML. P tag is a text element. Span is also a text element. We can have span inside a P tag because two of them are both text elements, text-based elements. So that's for span and that's for div. All right. So any other question? Israel.
Yeah, good evening, John. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Yeah, sorry. This is my first class. And I've been able to go through the other videos, so I've been able to catch up. I just have a question for this attribute of for and or for that we use when we say label for is equal to full name. So I came late joining the class, so I just need a bit of clarification for what that attribute stands for, the function of that attribute in that place.
All right. So when you're writing inputs, right, it is best to have a label to it or a text that just give more context to what the input is, right? So the for attributes, I mean, you already understood why I have the label set to full name and then the input set to text and then placeholder enter your full name, right? Then the for attribute is if I want to bind the label and the input together. All right. If I want to bind the label and the input together, I need to, how to do it? This is just the best way. This is the only way to do it, right? For the label elements, you're going to put an attribute that says for. Okay. Let me just say I don't have this for here yet. Here. So I now have an input with ID, full name, type, text, placeholder, enter your full name. So binding in this sense is I want when I click on full name, it should activate this input. Now, for now that is not binded, I remove the for element or the for attribute, sorry. If I click on this full name, I'm clicking on the full name now, right? You can see that this input is not getting active. How to know that input is active? Let me click on it. I clicked on this input. You can see the border, right? The blue border. It means that this is active. I can go ahead and type anything I want inside. So for me to bind this label, the label and the inputs, I need to, first of all, give my input an ID and make sure that the ID is not being used any other place. I cannot have another ID here that says full name. It will complicate how the system reads your file, right?
Yes.
Have an ID that says you can give the ID anything. I call it full name because this input is for full name, so that I will know that okay, this is for full name. Now, since you have set the ID to full name, you now come to your label and say this label is for full name.
Okay.
That's clear now, right? So now I'm telling the system that this label, I created this label for full name. So it means I can have this label anywhere. Let me just take this label outside. I can bring this label here. No matter where it is, as far as I'm binding the for attributes and the attributes of that full name, they are connected. So wherever it is, if I click on it, on this full name, it will activate this input. Now let me go and do it now. Now, where is our full name? This is our full name here. I'm sorry. Now the input is not active, is it? It's not. That blue border is not showing. But when I click on this full name, if say directly takes me to that input.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get it
So
now.
that, yeah. Welcome. All right. So there's a lot of elements, but as we progress, I'll be introducing them and then be giving more context to it. But we have to move to CSS real quick. Okay. There are some things I didn't point out on CSS. Let me clear all the CSS. There are some things I didn't point out on CSS the last class we did. Today is supposed to be the introduction of CSS, but then I jumped to just trying to get us to understand how to go about it at first. But then we already know what CSS is, right? CSS means cascading style sheets. It is used to apply, beautify our HTML and all that. Now there's a way you must write your CSS. We have already, but I need to put more context to it. There's a way you must write your CSS. Okay. Let me bring this here. Sorry. I hope you can see this though. This is how to write your CSS. It's a must. There's going to be a selector. For this example, it is H1. It can be anything, actually, right? Any tag that it is, you're specifying. selector, and then your declarations. It's plural. You can have a lot of declarations. And inside a particular declaration, you have the property, and then you have the value. Property, value. Likewise, every other declaration you're going to have. And you must wrap it in a curly braces. You must wrap the declaration in a curly braces. We have 3 braces. You can call it brackets, okay? Either called brackets or braces. We have curved braces, the one that is curved, open and close, curved. We have square braces, the one that is square, yeah, both open and close, square. And then we have curly. Curly is this one, yeah, that goes a little bit zigzag. So that's the 3 braces that we have. And each braces have its own role to play. When we get to JavaScript, you see where we use square braces. You see where we use curved braces. You also see where we use curly braces. But for now, for CSS, CSS needs you to apply or wrap your declarations with curly braces. And so this is how to write your CSS. There must be a selector, and then there must be a declarations. All your declarations wrapped inside the curly braces. And for each declaration, it's going to have a property and the value. Property and value, property and value. The property are the ones that CSS made available to you. You cannot create your own property. But the value, you can choose anything you want the value to be. So now if now since we saw a selector here, yeah, there are 3 simple selectors. We have the element selector. Sorry. We have the element selector. Sorry. That's one. These are the simple ones though. We have the ID selector. Then we have the class. We have other kind of selector. We have the pseudo, we have elements in elements, we have nested. But for the first 3 simple selectors, as a starter, this tree will come in handy for you to be able to play around your HTML implementation. And how do we do element selector? But first, hope you remember how we do this. Yeah, this is commenting out. Commenting out. To do it is command question mark or control question mark if you're on Windows. Command question mark if you're on Mac. Well, let me zoom in a little bit. So the element selector is just you choosing the element. Okay. Now we have in the body, we have the body. Body is an element. We have H1. H1 is an element. P is an element. Div is an element. H2 elements, form, and every other tags that you have here, they are all elements, right? And to write them, you just write the name of the elements. It's very simple. If you want to type body, just type body. And make sure you don't make mistake with the spellings, right? Body is B-O-D-Y here. That's what you're going to apply here. And now say B-O-D-Y. Remember, your curly brace is open and closed. Then enter. This is where our declaration is going to be. You can say background color. Let's say white smoke. Or let me make it obvious, red. I'll still change it back, okay? Now go back. Now, do we know why the color is not showing? Any person give me a clue why the color is not showing? I set a background color to red for my HTML. This is the body. So when I come here, all this white is supposed to be red. Can any person tell me why? Look at the HTML. Look at the CSS.
Because it is not linked.
Because it is not linked. Thank you. Sorry, who answered that again? Nafisat?
Yes, Nafisat.
Yeah, thank you. Because it's not linked. So, Nafisat, please next time just raise your hand. Yeah, we have others that raise their hand. I was trying to pick before you answer. But then thank you. That's the correct answer. Because it is not linked. And how do we do that? Remember how we do that? Link. Set your rel to style sheets, and then set the href to styles.css. That's it. If I gave it global to say, it's going to be global CSS. So if I go back now, you can see my background color is effective. So this is how to do, how to apply your styles for element selector. This is the selector, and you're selecting the elements. So let me remove the background color. I don't want to apply anything on the background color. I can just say white, okay? Let me just leave it as white. Another type of element selector, yeah, just selecting other elements. You can say P for, that's the front end, or H1. H1 is John Adibe. I can come down, say H1. Then I can say color. Remember, we talked about color at that time, right? I can say color blue. Okay. Yeah, the color is blue. So this is element selectors. Then the next selector is ID selector. We introduced an attribute called ID today, and we gave our about section an ID, and we set the ID to about. Now, how do we select this about in our CSS and apply a particular style to it? We cannot just come and say about, because this particular way is how you select for elements. All right, this is how you select for elements. So how do we select IDs? We use hash in front of the ID name. Okay, so let me now put hash here. Hash in front of the ID name. As far as an ID, the ID here says about. If I said about me, about hyphen me here, I'll come here, put the hyphen me, whatever the ID name is, but make sure you put hash before it. Now, when I set background color to orange, go back. If I come to the place that has ID about, everything here is orange. Remember, what is inside my about? We have H2, that's the header, the description. I'm a front-end developer, my skills or what I'm familiar with, and then my tools. And this is where it ended. Remember, this is where it ended. This is the div that started it. This is the div that ended it. So everything here is going to take background color orange, and that's what is happening here. Okay, so that's the ID selector. We also can make example of these inputs that we have. We have an ID that says ID full name, right? So how can we apply style to this particular element, this input element? Come down, hash, full name, right? Full name. Full name. Make sure you're not making a mistake with spelling. What I normally do is just to copy and paste. Because when the code base start getting large, you might start messing up with naming conventions. So it's good to just copy and paste. So now I can say full name. Full name is an input. So I can say background color to rosy brown. Okay. Scroll back, come down. You can see my inputs. Enter your full name. The background color is rosy brown. I mean, that's what the color is, right? Yeah. If I remove this hash in front of it, you see it will break. It will not affect. Because I am telling, without a hash, I'm saying that there's a tag called full name and there's no tag called full name. So it's just an ID. And to represent ID, we use hash. So that's for ID selector. Then how do we select class? Do we have a class here? I'm not sure we have a class. All right, now let's give this class, this UL, let's give this class of interest. Oh, yeah. HTML, CSS, JavaScript is my interest. Yeah, I think that's fine. Then let's give this class tools. Let me change this to skills, please. Okay. Now we have two classes. How do we select class? You can write the name first. This one is for skills, right? Write out the name, open and close. But then we have to do something to this particular selector to tell it that this is a class. So go to my HTML, look for a class, label skills, and then apply this style to it. And how do we do that? Put a period or a full stop before it, right? For ID, we put hash before it. For class, we put full stop. before the name of the tab. Make sure there is no space between them, else it will break. Then we can now apply our styles. Okay, let's say yeah, I think we have only talked about background color much. So let's say background color Sienna. And that's wrapping my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Background color Sienna. If I scroll, I'll see that my HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is wrapped in a background color now. Right? I can do the same thing for my tools. Come back. That is my tools, mouse, keyboard, and laptop. My tools is a class, remember? So we have to put a full stop before it. Okay, then we can say background color set to cadet blue. I mean, there's a lot of color names. You can choose anything. It's not like I know this top of my head. I'm just selecting from the options. So we can see now mouse, keyboard, laptop is cadet blue. So yeah, that is basically it for the simple selectors. We have other selectors actually. We have the pseudo selectors, we have the elements and element selector. But as we progress, as we dive deep, we're going to touch upon those areas. So yeah, that's it. So there's one more thing there's one more selector I want to introduce. There's a universal selector. Because if you notice, you see that there are some spaces by default, your browser or the system just adds some margin and padding to every element. That's why you're seeing, I've not even added a space, but you're seeing a space between JavaScript and this here. You're seeing this space between front-end developer and this here. It's not supposed to be. And then you're seeing a space between the front end and then the walls of our body. By default, there's not supposed to be space. I mean, this is just the default setting here. But when we start coding, it's best to reset all these spaces so that you can now choose your own values if you want to start applying spaces and have more control over it. That should be the fourth selector I'll be talking about, which is the universal selector. And to select universal selector is just your asterisk. I can come and say asterisk, open and close, set all the padding to 0, and also set all the margin to 0. We talked about margin and padding. I will still reiterate the definitions before I proceed here. So with this asterisk, I'm telling my CSS for every element of my HTML, reset all the margin, reset all the padding. With this asterisk also, you can apply other styles that you want to be like global to all your elements, to affect elements. Here you can even say a font family. There's a property we call font family in CSS. This is just to put fonts to your element or to your text or the content in your HTML. Let me comment this out first here. Go back. We now see that everything is now stacked or very close to each other because we have reset the ones that came with the body. Okay? We have reset everything that came with the body. We can see the J is now very, very close to the walls, and every other element is tight up to each other. Now we now have control to make our own spaces according to how we want it to be. All right. So that's that. So now look at these fonts. Let me just do this font family so we'll see. If I uncomment all this, look again. If I save, I don't know if you notice difference, but let me look for more comical fonts. Well, let's see. Georgia, Time New Romance, Time Serif. If I go back here, there's a little bit change. I think I'll work with this. To get all the fonts, the font that came with the system, just come to the value, control, space. This is mostly to list the options of a particular attribute or the values for a particular property in your CSS. You can scroll down, can see other fonts that we have here. There's just a lot of them here. But these are not the only fonts we have. We can also add fonts from Google, like probably download some font, then inject it in our code base. But for now, let me leave the Georgia Times New Roman Times and serif. Let me work with this. Okay. All right. So now let me reiterate the margin and padding. Okay. By introducing margin and padding when we are talking about box model, right? I told us that padding is a space between the content inside a particular container. Let me give you this example. In this about now, right? Or sorry, this HTML, this is JavaScript now. You can see that everything is so close up to each other because the padding is 0 by default. Now, if you add a padding, you see that there's going to be a space within the walls of this. What's the name of this color again? I've forgotten. And then the content. So, and what is giving this color? That's the scales part. I believe that's the scales part. So if I come to the scales and say padding left, let's say 10px, px. Px is the unit of measurement that's the default unit, but there are other units, but px is the default. That's pixels. Padding left. Oh wow. Oh yeah, I think I need to put more to make it obvious. 50. Yeah, we can see there's a space now. Yeah, talk about this. There's a space now, yeah, to the left. I can also effect that to the top. Sorry. Padding top. And say padding top 10px. Padding bottom 10px. Make sure you close every declaration with the semicolon. If I didn't put the semicolon, it's going to show an error because it doesn't recognize where this particular one ended. So the semicolon will know that the system will know that, okay, this is where it ended, and the next declarations will follow. Yeah, we can see we now have a space in the top and we have a space in the bottom. All right, there is one more way to write padding without writing it individually, right? We can just say padding. There's a padding attribute. This takes in one value or 4 values. You can put in only one value. If I say 50px, okay, if I say 50p, let me comment out these ones at the top. If I say 50px, I'm telling my system, both the top, the bottom, the left, and the right, apply 50px to it. Okay, that's what this is. Like without specifying anything, just say padding 50px. Top, bottom, top, bottom, left, and right, everything takes 50px. Now, if I go back, you see both the top, both the left, top, and bottom, everything takes 250px. Or we can also put 4 values here. The first value is top. Second value is right. This is like clockwise. Third value is bottom. And the fourth value is left. This is not how you are going to write it. This is just how the values are being calculated. So if I put top values, the first value I put, if I put 4 values, sorry, the first value that I put in will be dedicated or assigned to the top padding. The next one will be assigned to the right padding. The next one, that's the third one, will be assigned to the bottom padding. And then the fourth one, that's the last one, will be assigned to the left. It's more like a clockwise direction here, from the top, right, bottom, and then left. Okay, so now let's change it to the real values. Let's say I want to give my top 20px. The right, I want to give the right 10px. I want to give the bottom, yeah, 20px again. Then the left, I want to give the left 10px. So we're now saying padding, give 20px to the top, 10px to the right, 20px to the bottom, and 10px to the left. Now when I go back, there's actually a padding here. Let me just increase it. This is the one for the left. Let me make left to be 50. That's the last one. can see it here. So there is this padding that we need to reset when it comes to list items. List items, because it starts taking the padding from this element, it doesn't take the padding from the bullets, right? Start taking the padding from, if I remove the padding left, you see that everything will zero out, both the bullets. Let me set padding left to 0 px. Go back, you see that the bullets are hidden. So for list items, both UL and OL, that's another list and other list, they both assume their padding from the content, not the bullets or the numeric arrangements. But I will still discuss how to reset that in the next class. So yeah, this is it. Likewise, margin, right? We have margin, margin top, we have margin bottom, just the same flow with padding also, right? Margin top, margin bottom, margin left, and margin right. And also the same way, we can only say margin and then set one value. If we set one value, then we're telling the system that apply this 30px to all the sides, both top, bottom, left, and right. Or we can still provide 4 values. Okay, probably I want to give this side difference instead of calling it one by one. I can say, yeah, let me just finish it up. Margin top, 30px, margin right, bottom, and then left. Now, if I go back, we're going to see the margin in play. Now, this is a clear definition of what the difference between margin and the padding. Padding is the space between the content and the borders, but margin is the space between the container entirely and then the outer space. We can see that we added margin, we had space here, we have space here, we have space at the top, we also have space at the right. Okay, let me set all the margin to be uniform. I can see margin 30px. I want both the top and the right and everything. You can see it here now. If I increase it more, let me make it a little bit obvious. Yeah, just shrinks our content. But don't want it like that here. Let's just leave it at 30px. Now this is margin, the space with this container entirely and then the outer elements. And this container in question is the scales, which is this guy, the UL. And there's one more property I'll talk about before we wrap it up. Just to summarize the whole box model thingy. In box model, we have talked about the content, that's what's inside the elements. We have talked about padding, that's what is the space between the contents and then the borders. We have talked about margin, that's the space between the container entirely and then the outside environment. Then there's one more thing, border. Okay, we have been talking about border. Yes, border has its own property in CSS. Okay, and the first property is the border width. Let's say border width to be 1px. I will show us the thing in play. Then we have border style to be solid. We have border color. You can set border color to be black. These are the 3 main properties that you need while working with border. First one is border width, border style, and border color. Border color can be anything. Okay. Now, when we go back, I want to finish this thing up. Okay, yeah. When we go back, we're going to see a black line surrounding our elements. So this is just you. The border already is there. We are just making it obvious. We're increasing the pixel and we're also applying a color to it. You can see this black line at the outermost part of our container. Now, if I set the border color to be red, you can see that the border changes to red. I can call it anything I want. Blue. Border color, you see the outer part changes to blue. Then the first thing there is the px. Px controls the weight or the space that particular border takes. Now let me increase the px to, let's say 5px. Okay, that's the border width to 5px. If I come back, you see that it's a little bit thicker. So you can use the px to control the thickness of that particular border. and where you apply it is on the border width. If I say 10px, see, it's thicker. Okay, it's very, very thick now. If you keep increasing, you keep getting thick. I think I like this 10px. Let me change this to black, the border color to black. Yeah, this is good, right? Yeah, so this is the border set to 10px with border color set to black. Now, the last part of it is the border style. Okay, the border style is solid by default. Okay, but then we have other options. And how can we explore the options? Delete what is here already. Remember what I told you? Control and spacebar. You see all the options of border style. The first one is dashed. We have dotted. We have double. We have groove. We have hidden. Then let's just start from this groove actually. Other ones are just, yeah, we have ridge also. We have solid. Please, at your convenience, play with this, right? And what I will suggest for you to like understand this more is any property you write out, just press Control Spacebar to see all the options on that particular property. With that, you can try each of them, then see whichever one that suits your or need or what how the UI is. Now, if I change it to dashed, you can see it is now dashed, a little bit space in the middle. Dashed, dashed up, dash, dash, dash. There is also dotted, I think. There is dotted. You can see it is now full stop, but dotted. That's the border style. You can change the border style to, there is double, I think. Change it to double. You can see it just doubles up. Okay, I like this double, I'll keep it. So yeah, this is the border style. There's other ones, but I want you to go and explore, try them out, right? And then see what you get. Now, all these declarations can also be written as just one property. Instead of having three declarations, we have border width, border style, and border color. We can still have it as one declaration, which is border. Just write border out. Okay. The first property is the width. That's the border width. You can say 10px. We choose 10px, but the second property is the border style, right? And we choose double. We can set it to double. And the third property is the border color, and we chose black. Now, if I remove this, comment out this thing, go back, you see that it still affects, right? This is just another way of writing all these three items just in one particular declaration. Make sure you have space in between them. First one is the width, second one is the style, third one is the color. Now let's change this thing up, just to be sure that this is actually working. We can say dashed. We change the style to dash. If I come back, it's now dashed. So it is, yeah. All right, so yes, that is that's that for this. Just summarizes the box model entirely, and the box model contains we have box model just contains the content, the padding, sorry, yeah, exactly, the content, the padding, the border, and then the margin. Just controls how you present a box on your HTML element. And also we have other units, right? Because we have been talking about pixel, pixels. We have other units. We have pixel, which is px. Yeah. We have a no, that's not good. We have rem. Okay. We have m. We have percentage also. We have percentage. You can represent it with, yeah, your percentage signs. And we have viewports. No, we have used px a lot, yeah. We can use every other one. We have viewports. Viewport can be view height or view width. VH means view height. VW means view width, right? So view height is the entire, this particular window, the height of this window, what you are seeing, that's the view, right? From this place to this place. This is the view height. So it's going to automatically calculate the view height of a particular system and then assign that value to whatever elements you applied it. So we are going to talk about this more in our next class. That's the units, the size units. Exactly. Let me just make it more descriptive. The size units. So don't worry, throughout the course, I will just continue updating this portfolio just to make it look more appealing. By the end, we are going to be happy with the results, but it's going to be a gradual process. We'll definitely get there. Along the line, we'll just introduce more CSS properties, the declarations, the values. Also, we're introducing more elements that you can work with. All right, so that's that. Thank you for listening. And now is a good time to ask your questions. Oh yeah, we have those taking notes on the chat section. Thank you, Nafisa. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you. Elijah, thank you also. Can the border be written in a different format? There's only two ways to write your borders. It's either you're writing it in this format, that's writing each of them one by one, or you're writing it as one declaration. That's the only way you can specify your borders or give it a style or anything. So outside these two, there is no other way to apply borders. Did I answer your question, Jairus? Cool. Yes, any other question? Border can be written in two values too. How do you put site contents? Do you use elements or CSS? Yes, yes. There is an element called aside. Okay. There's just a lot of elements, but I want us to go. We cannot be able to explain or talk about all of them here, right? So in our leisure time, check out W3 schools. There are lots of elements you can play with. Yes, you can do or put contents on the side using both elements and also CSS. We're going to get to that CSS property next. Probably in the next class, we're going to talk about that. But then there is an element we have. It is called an aside element. Coming. It's called an aside. And to have an aside, you can just say after this div, you can create another element. You can say aside. You just write anything here, right? You can just write, yeah, here's two links. We can have a UL. That's another list. You can have list item, Twitter. Probably as you want to write some other things on the side, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram and all that. Where is it? Have I saved? I have saved. Where's my aside? Let me see. Let me see if this thing works if I change it to section. Well, let me have two aside actually and see if it works. This is supposed to be a div. Go back to div. Let me have two aside. Please drop your questions. Is this side by side? It's not side by side. All right. So most of the times to achieve this, you might have to use inline elements, but most of the time I use CSS, right? I don't know why this is not working, but then there's an element called aside. Now I just introduced it. You know, in the next class, I'm going to talk about how to put content by the side using CSS. This didn't work. Sure. No, figure it out. Did I answer your question, Jacqueline? I mean, it didn't work, so I'm not sure your question was answered. What good? All right. Thank you. Yes, please. Any other question? You talked about version control. When shall we learn it? Yes, version control. Yes. Yes, I wanted to bring it up today, but we are still a little bit far behind when it comes to the basics for HTML and CSS. And there's a whole topic on it, right? So if we're ever going to bring version control up, we are going to fully concentrate on it. So I want us to be able to build out a website. Everybody to be able to build out align contents on the website, right? Then probably by definitely on the next class, probably on the after the class, from the next class, right? How will I put it? Yeah, from next week we'll start talking about version control. But then we'll focus fully on it, right? So yeah. So by next week we'll be talking about version control. Any other question? All right. If there is another question, please, one person should just volunteer, discuss about everything we talked about in the class today. Then we'll wrap it up. One person, please, volunteer, point out all the topics and highlight all the topics we discussed this evening. Class captain, Amos, are you here?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
Can you bail me out? Nobody is trying to cover for this. I just need someone to explain everything, right? Just the topics that we talked about this evening.
Okay, we talked about the label elements, we talked about the input elements, we also talked about the area element. These are all elements used to create a form.
Yeah.
We talked about the form elements that wraps all of these label, input, and text area elements inside it, that tells the system that this is a form, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about selectors like element selectors, ID selectors, and class selectors. Those are the three main types of selectors we talked about today. Element selectors like the body selectors, which is body and curly braces with the I can't remember what you called it, but the value and the other stuff inside. I plan to watch the recording. And we have other element selectors like article and H1, probably all those ones that have normal elements with curly braces, right?
Yeah.
So those were the few things we talked about today. And then you just talked about borders, borders, and then the other information that comes with the border, like the border width, the border style, and then the border color. We talked about margin and padding as well, and how different ways which we can write it. You can either write it like padding, and then we can write it with 4 dimensions that takes the clockwise format, which is padding top, padding right, padding bottom, and padding left. Same thing applies to the margin top, margin right, margin bottom, and margin left. We can also write it with two. We can also write it in two. Was it two or one? You said I can't remember, but those are the few things I remember that we did.
Yeah, there's actually a way you can write it in two forms. I didn't talk about it, but we'll probably mention it. I'll mention it in next class. Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so those are about everything that I remember we spoke about today. And we talked about, you also you also talked more on box elements and inline elements. We talked about how we could basically style them, you know, and we
Yeah.
said you're going to talk more on that in the next class. We also talked about importing styles, linking our CSS file. That's when we're using external CSS. We talked about how we can link it to the HTML file. So that's it.
Thank you very much, Joshua. All right, in the absence of any other question, I'll hand the mic over to Alex. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. John. I really enjoy your section. Okay, what I'll just add is I posted the link to the comment section to know those people who attended the meeting. So just go to the meeting and go to the comment section and go to the comment section and fill the form. Thank you.